On March 27, 1975, 12 Caterpillar side booms lined up along the Tonsina River in southern Alaska and lowered 1,900 feet of welded, concrete-coated pipe into a trench cut through the riverbed. It was the first piece of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. Cameras were rolling, engineers were shaking hands. Then the pipe floated back up. 1,900 feet of steel and concrete, designed to carry crude oil 800 miles from Prudhoe Bay to Valdez, popped out of the river bottom like a cork. The concrete weight collars Alyeska had bolted to the pipe were not heavy enough. The whole section had to be pulled, re-weighted, and buried again. That was day one. The pipeline would take 2 more years. It would cost $8 billion. 70,000 people would work on it. 32 of them would not come home. And when it was finished, somebody had to figure out what to do with 20,000 pieces of heavy equipment scattered across 800 miles of Arctic wilderness. The internet says they were abandoned, left to rust in the tundra. We checked, and the actual story involves the biggest equipment auction in American history, 200 stolen trucks that turned up in Mexico City, and a legal obligation that will eventually require someone to pull 3.5 million tons of steel back out of the frozen ground. The project that broke the pipe at Tonsina was already the most expensive private construction job ever attempted. The original estimate in 1969 was $900 million. By the time the last weld was finished on May 31, 1977, the final bill was $8 billion. That is $42 billion in today's money. And that number does not include the road they had to build first. Before a single piece of pipe could move north from the Yukon River, Alyeska needed a road. 360 miles of gravel from the Yukon crossing to Prudhoe Bay, across permafrost that could swallow a bulldozer whole. They called it the Haul Road. It cost $185 million. They built it in 154 days, from April to September 1974, with 3,400 workers and 170,000 flights. More than 700 flights a day, every day for 5 months, just to keep the road crews supplied. At peak construction in October 1975, 28,072 people were working on the pipeline simultaneously. They lived in 31 camps strung along the route, each one a self-contained town with dormitories, kitchens, game rooms, telephones, and heated outhouses that cost $10,000 apiece to build for temperatures that dropped past 70 degrees below zero. The equipment fleet was staggering. Alyeska started with 5,000 pieces of heavy equipment in 1974. By the time the pipeline was operational, Time magazine counted 18,000 bulldozers, cranes, and heavy machines, 2,000 pickup trucks, 125 portable bridges, and 1,500 insulated outhouses. If you want to find out what happened to all of it and why 200 trucks vanished overnight, like and subscribe. This is the part nobody covers. The machines that built the pipeline were fighting conditions that Caterpillar never designed for. Standard hydraulic fluid in a D9H turns to paste at minus 20 degrees Celsius. On the North Slope, where Pump Station 1 recorded temperatures below minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit during the winter of 1976, every piece of equipment needed Arctic modification packages. Block heaters, insulated hydraulic reservoirs, pre-warmed startup routines. Even then, operators rotated out every few hours because the cabs were not heated well enough to keep a man working a full shift without risking frostbite. On the steepest sections of Thompson Pass, where the grade hits 60%, bulldozers worked in pairs. One machine pulled the other up the slope on a safety winch, because if a track slipped, there was nothing between the operator and a 2,800-foot fall to the canyon floor. Alyeska's president, Bill Darch, called the Thompson Pass push a commando raid. Welders had to be lowered on ropes down the south face. Planes dropped coal dust on the snowpack in spring to accelerate the melt, so construction could continue. And then someone noticed the trucks were disappearing. In 1975, the Los Angeles Times reported that 200 of Alyeska's 1,200 yellow trucks were missing. Not broken down, not parked at a camp somewhere. Gone. The paper tracked some of them from Alaska to Miami, and from Miami to Mexico City. Workers had figured out that if you mailed an empty box to a pipeline camp, you could fill it with anything you wanted and ship it back out. When Alyeska started requiring every outbound package to be sealed in front of a security guard, outbound mail from the camps dropped by 75% overnight. But the trucks were a different problem. You cannot seal a truck in front of a guard. Alyeska's official response said the number was 20 to 30 vehicles, not 200. The crackdown said otherwise. Like and subscribe if you want more stories the industry remembers but never recorded. The pipe itself kept fighting back. A year after the Tonsina debacle, it happened again. On the Sagavanirktok River on the North Slope, a 1,700-foot section of concrete-coated submerged pipeline broke free from its moorings and floated to the surface. Alaska Fish and Game gave Alyeska 24 hours to fix it because the Arctic char were migrating and the floating pipe was blocking the run. 24 hours. For 1,700 feet of pipe in a river north of the Arctic Circle. On an $8 billion project. And that was not the worst of it. In July 1975, a subcontractor was caught falsifying weld X-rays. By 1976, 3,955 questionable welds, roughly 10% of the entire 1975 production, were under investigation. After congressional hearings, 31 welds had to be physically dug up and redone. 3 of those welds were buried 17 feet under the Koyukuk River. To inspect them, Alyeska sent 12 men on wheeled sleds through the inside of the empty pipeline, pulled by a modified John Deere lawnmower with 48-inch fans installed at the cut ends to circulate breathable air. That inspection alone cost $55 million. On July 8, 1977, just 18 days after the first oil started flowing, crude oil sprayed from a pump under repair at Pump Station 8, 17 miles southeast of Fairbanks. It hit a spark. 1 worker was killed and 5 were injured. The station was destroyed and did not reopen until March 1978. So what happened to the equipment? In January 1977, somebody at Alyeska sat down and typed a list. 20,000 pieces of equipment, heavy machines, vehicles, bridges, camp buildings, and 1,500 heated outhouses at $10,000 each. The New York Times called it the biggest going out of business sale in American history. Here is what the internet gets wrong. The equipment was not abandoned. It was auctioned. And the auction was not a one-time fire sale that ended in 1977 and was forgotten. Alyeska hired an auctioneer in Fairbanks called First Strike Asset Management. The terms of sale explicitly name First Strike as agent for the owners of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System. That same company, at the same address in Fairbanks, still runs an annual Alyeska surplus auction today. Documented in 2011, documented in 2019, still happening in 2026. The going out of business sale has been running for 49 years and counting. 20 of the 31 construction camps were put up for sale. 1 was bought by the University of Alaska as an Arctic research facility. Another became Coldfoot Camp, the truck stop and motel that still operates today at mile 175 of the Dalton Highway. The gravel pads under the remaining camps were physically scraped up and hauled away. Only 2 of the 14 airfields Alyeska built during construction, Galbraith Lake and Prospect, were left in operation. The rest were demolished and reclaimed. We found a court case from 1983. Alaska Northern Development versus Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. A buyer tried to lock in a bulk deal on surplus equipment in December 1976. The deal was approved at the working level, then rejected by the Alyeska Owner Committee in March 1977, right when the giant auction was getting started. They rejected it because the surplus was too valuable to sell at a bulk discount. That is the opposite of equipment that was thrown away. But here is the part that rewrites everything. The pipeline itself, 800 miles of 48-inch steel pipe on 78,000 vertical support members, is the one piece of equipment from the 1974 build that is legally required to come back out of the ground. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline Authorization Act of 1973 built removal into the original right-of-way lease. Because the pipeline crosses federal land and Alaska Native land that Alyeska only leases, the agreement requires Alyeska to physically remove the pipe and restore the corridor when operations end. Tariffs collected over the life of the pipeline are funding that future dismantlement right now. When that day comes, an estimated 3.5 million tons of steel will be pulled from the ground, cut, and recycled. Most other oil pipelines in America simply rot in place when they are abandoned. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline is the rare exception. The biggest piece of equipment is the one piece they cannot leave behind. 20,000 machines were listed for sale. Most were sold. Some were stolen. A few were destroyed in fires and explosions. The road they built to move them became a public highway. The camps they slept in became a truck stop and a research station. And the pipeline they laid, starting with the piece that floated back up at Tonsina, is still carrying oil today, 49 years later, waiting for the day someone has to take it all apart. If you made it this far, leave a comment and tell us which pipeline story we should cover next. Like and subscribe. We check every claim before we run it.